Steve Ditko and Stan Lee's Spider-Man run set a status quo that would stand the test of time. But not every idea was an instant classic. Some things stuck, and some things were as fleeting as Uncle Ben's life in a reboot. Spidey originally submitted his selfies to Now magazine, and the Vulture was his first recurring nemesis. Out of all these plot points, villains are always at risk for being left behind. Aside from Batman, Spider-Man has the most iconic gallery of rogues. But for every Green Goblin, there's about 10 villains even Sony wouldn't touch. Rip Craven the Hunter, dead on arrival. Some of these lost rogues don't stay lost forever, though. Sometimes they get a second chance with an edgy revamp, and sometimes the artist needs another character for a crowd shot. Anyway, here's 2 forgotten Spider-Man villains that came back. The Terrible Tinker is such an odd character. Phineas Mason is featured inconsistently in the comics and other media, though sometimes it feels like writers aren't sure what to do with him. The Insomniac version is basically a completely different character with the same name. He had a small role in Homecoming too, designing weapons for Adrian Toomes. His part in Homecoming is fitting since his first appearance was in Spider-Man No. 2 alongside the Vulture. Our story begins with how every Stan Lee Spider-Man comic begins, the other students giving Peter crap while he's just trying to do his schoolwork. Peter's hot, moist love of science is paid off though, and the teacher introduces him to an engineer. Professor Cobwell wants Peter to come to his lab over the weekend to help with experiments. You know, it's the famous Professor Cobwell. He's a super famous scientist that everybody knows about, and he just wants you to come alone to his lab, where there's no witnesses. Make sure you don't tell your parents. I guess Professor Cobwell really is just looking for free child labor since all he wants is Peter to pick up his radio from the repair shop. A better time where tech wasn't made to keep people from fixing it. Just imagine if this happened now.
Peter! Peter! Peter!
What?
My radio needs...
What?
My radio needs fixed.
I'm in a match, I'll do it later.
You still haven't gotten my pills.
Yeah, I'll get them tomorrow.
The pharmacy's just down the street.
Look, get off my back, I'll do it tomorrow. Yeah, sorry, that was my aunt. She's like, really old. She's like 50 and she has dementia or some shit. I'm just waiting until I can put her in a home. It's what's best for her.
My chest hurts.
And of course, Flash is a complete ass about this. Hey Parker, how's it feel to have the highest GPA in our class? Peter goes to pick up the radio, and the shop is run by this freak. I made a joke about Professor Cobwell being a creep, but this dude is definitely on some kind of list. Spidey is suspicious too, since it makes his Peter tingle. And his tingle was right. Because... aliens. Yeah, that's quite the escalation, isn't it? The only other villains Spider-Man has fought at this point have been a couple of thieves. And now, aliens. I do dig their designs, though. It's a classic Doctor Who Star Trek kind of alien, even down to the fact that they look like guys in costumes. Peter is weirded out by how cheap the repair is and takes the radio back to Cobwell. The radio sets off his spider sense the same way the Tinkerer did. He waits for Cobwell to leave, and Peter disassembles the radio. Inside, he finds a device emitting electrical impulses. He goes back to the Tinkerer's lair, and we see what their master plan is. Why did these aliens travel light years to Earth? They just put some surveillance equipment in the radios they repaired. That's it? You just want to watch the boring-ass lives of the average American? You've unlocked faster than light travel, and you couldn't put like a mind control device in it or something? The aliens further prove how useless they are by dogpiling on Spider-Man. They also only have one ray gun between them. I guess that's not an artistic choice, and they really don't have any eyes, cause they can't hit jack shit with that gun either. Peter discovered them on accident, so what was their plan if the military showed up? Since the Tinker has eyes, he has better aim and shoots Spider-Man, but he survives thanks to that trademark spider strength. Always there when it's convenient. Sure, they could have shot him again or, bashed his head in with a wrench while he's out, but jar, just put him in a big jar. He'll be nice and safe in there. But they were also kind enough to give him some air holes perfectly sized for his web shooters and pointed directly at the open button. They look so shocked when he escapes. Maybe next time they could, just put the button inside the jar. You'd never expect to find it there. I love this part where he punches an alien into another alien while he's firing the laser and it hits the control panel. That control panel must have been made of gasoline, because everything is on fire and they haul ass out of there. Spider-Man tries catching the Tinkerer, but he slips away in the smoke. Look at that ship. There is no way these are the same aliens that built that thing. It apparently would have taken them months to make another control panel, but, like, they have this sick-looking ship with a tractor beam. Or maybe that's not a tractor beam. The colors kind of make it look like they accidentally vaporized themselves. Peter goes back to Cobwell's lab to remove the device from his radio. The comic ends with the revelation that Peter ripped off the Tinkerer's fucking face. Nah, JK, it's just a mask. The Tinkerer didn't make much of an impact, though, since he didn't have another appearance for a full 13 years, and has only served as a background threat ever since. He settled comfortably into a role as the bad guy making gadgets for other bad guys, and it suits him. Like many Stan Lee creations, both the Tinkerer and the aliens were later retconned. See, this comic was actually the first appearance of Mysterio. It was later stated in Spectacular Spider-Man number 51 that the aliens really were just dudes in rubber costumes. They were created by Quentin Beck before he came up with Mysterio. The Tinkerer's rubber mask was just part of the alien gimmick. The thing is, that retcon doesn't really make much sense when you get down to it. Like, why did Mysterio want to spy on people? And why have the aliens if they were doing all this in secret? The Tinker isn't fully forgotten, but I doubt you'll see a Funko Pop of him. Alright, let's take a moment to talk about today's sponsor. Oh wait, we don't have one! Moving on, the Living Brain is like a robot, computer thing, first appearing in Spider-Man number 8. I think even Stan and Steve were confused about what this thing was supposed to be. That's a different robot on the cover, and Stan's usual hype doesn't sound too enthused. Look at that. He didn't even use any alliteration. Our story begins with no build-up as the Living Brain is just wheeled into Peter's class. Yeah, that's where we want to take our experimental sensitive technology into a room of a bunch of teenagers. This thing is going to get set on fire for a TikTok challenge within 10 minutes. Flash proceeds to do that one thing he does and make Peter's life miserable for no reason. Does Flash even have the right to pick on Peter for being a nerd? Flash's real name is Eugene, and let us not forget how he got the nickname Flash to begin with. He breaks Peter's glasses and their rivalry hits its peak. This has been building for so long that Peter standing up to Flash actually has top billing over Spider-Man fighting the robot. This is also the reason Peter stopped wearing glasses. And he never got contacts or anything. Out of every weird little thing that was later altered or changed, I'm surprised they never just said his powers make him see better. At least the movies did that anyway. The Living Brain looks kinda ridiculous, but I can't help but love it. It's like somebody turned a Victorian bathtub into an android. Like the aliens, it has this classic sci-fi B-movie feel to it. The scientists explain the different features, including the fact that this thing is apparently smarter than humans. These people are very chill for witnessing the invention of an ASI. Since Peter is the best smart boy, he's chosen to ask the Living Brain a question for the class. The class all has a crush on Spider-Man, and they want to ask the Brain what Spider-Man's secret identity is. Peter reluctantly enters all the known information about Spider-Man into the Brain, knowing it might somehow figure out it's him. Well, since we have, semi-intelligent AI, why not ask? Thankfully, the Brain is just as useless and gives the answer as a mathematical code that will take a whole day to solve. Better not ask it anything time-sensitive. It would probably faster just to figure out whatever question you have on your own. In the background, the two guys the scientist was using to wheel around the Brain start planning to steal it. Their plan is as follows. Step 1, steal the Living Brain. Step 2, Step 3, profit. The teacher finally gets fed up with Flash being an asshole, and he does something about it. He sends them to the gym to have a boxing match. We all know how this is going to turn out because we know Peter is Spider-Man. The teacher doesn't know that, though. As far as this thumb of a man knows, Peter is super weak and nerdy. He basically just gave Flash permission to kick his ass. Peter, on the other hand, is worried if he can hold back enough to not kill Flash. We all remember what happened when Spidey didn't hold back. Despite Peter's attempt at restraining himself, it goes like a first-time Skyrim player picking a fight with a giant. Oh yeah, there's a robot in this comic. While everybody's watching Peter kick the shit out of Flash, the two assistants try taking the living brain. The scientist notices, and while one of the crooks knocks him out, he bumps into the living brain, making it go crazy. What's that thing made out of? Boba Fett's jetpack? Peter is given Flash sufficient brain damage, and exactly 30 seconds later, he's changed into his costume to stop the brain. The brain's unstoppable strategy is to just roll around swinging its arms. It breaks through Spidey's webs, but that seems more like an example of brute force rather than it being smart. Actually, why did the scientist make this thing so strong? Maybe, giving it a machine gun or two could have made it even safer. Spider-Man dodges the brain swinging arms as it learns from fighting him. After a few moments of observation, the brain can basically predict his movements. Spidey is safe as long as he stays out of range, but the brain could kill him with one hit. The brain realizes it's a stalemate and decides bludgeoning some defenseless students would be much easier. Spider-Man manages to reach the control panel and turns off the brain. He can't break free of its grasp as it rolls towards the stairs. He uses his webs to swing them over the stairs and back, stopping it. The goons that started all this try to escape, but Flash accidentally trips them. The story ends with Peter convincing the other students that Flash really is Spider-Man, no doubt ruining his life when villains show up to his house for revenge. The living brain would take much longer to return than the Tinkerer, not appearing again until 1988 in Web of Spider-Man 35. It wouldn't come back again fully until the 2010s, where it became heavily associated with Dr. Octopus, similar to the Tinkerer being later associated with Mysterio. While these two stories aren't the most exciting Spider-Man comics, I get why both these villains were brought back, I think. I feel like having villains with differing threat levels that interact with each other is good for world building. Calendar Man was never a notable Batman villain, but his inclusion in The Long Halloween is memorable. Basically, there's gotta be lame bad guys to make the real bad guys look even worse. Thanks for watching, and you could do me a solid and hit that subscribe button. And if you have a suggestion for a video, leave it in the comments.